Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the presentation of the Implement 4.0 project promoted Agricoltura e Vita. I'm Professor Fabrizio Chianetti from the University of Bolzano, Professor Frascarelli from the University of Perugia, and then we'll be listening to the point of view of the President of the Italian Association of Young Farmers, and Gerardo Caffini, the owner of Caffini. The conclusions will be drawn by Sandro Liberatori, the director of ENAMA. First of all, welcome everybody and thanks. We'll start with Mr. Limongelli, who will provide us an overview of the Implement 4.0 project. It is an Erasmus Plus project with 3 Turkish universities and an Italian partnership, including Agricoltura e Vita, which is part of C Agricoltura and ENAMA. Mr. Limongelli will talk about the partnership and the goals of the project. Today, we're talking about spraying machines and sprinters, and we will also hear from Professor Rossetto and Frascarelli about digital agriculture. We have to look at this within the European New Green Deal, which envisages a reduction by 50% of the pesticides within a very short period of time. So we'll try and understand from today's experience whether this is a small element that we can add to the puzzle, making it possible to achieve the ambitious European goals. Thank you, Mr. Ansanelli. Just a second to share my presentation. Can you see my slides? Yes, we can see it, and you can start. So thank you very much for this opportunity to present this project on behalf of ENAMA and Agricoltura e Vita. Let's consider the origins of Implement 4.0. Everything started from the Implement project, which is a previous project covering the crops, plant machines. 5 modules were implemented, training modules, which were made available through an e-learning platform and also through the Implement website. The project focused on the safe use, on the management, and on the functional control of sprayer machines. It involved partners from 3 different countries: Turkey, Italy, and Spain. On account of this experience, the project has evolved into Implement 4.0, which extends the previous project to digital solutions related to sprayer machines. Training modules were organized in this case too for machine users and manufacturers depending on their skills and competencies. The goal of this project aims at adding information to reduce the use of protection chemicals thanks to new technologies. Mr. Canalicchio will expand on this. Let's move on. Mr. Antonelli already mentioned the partners on three prestigious Turkish universities based in Samsun and Ankara. And then for Spain, we have Jaén, and on projects which is an advisory company in project management. For Italy, the partners are ENA and Agricultura e Vita. Implement 4.0 includes three different training modules that I will briefly describe. These modules are structured with slides, text, and images. Then there's a glossary of the terms used in the slides and references. At the end of each module, there's a test with 10 open or multiple answer questions that will allow the attendees to be assessed. The title of Module 1 is Digital Agriculture and Crop Protection Technologies. The partners have investigated, well, first of all, the general approach to digital agriculture, and then in each country, we have investigated the state of the art in terms of digital agriculture and technology for plant protection. Finally, we have considered the training needs and requirements for digital agriculture. Module 2, which is about to be implemented, is based on case studies. In different settings. For example, tree crops, fruit orchards, vineyards, and olive groves. The third case study is horticulture, and the fourth is protected crops. The third module will be implemented in 2021 and will consider a certification system for sustainable agriculture. Because these new systems applied to agricultural machinery have to be certified. Somehow they have to be assessed from the quality standpoint in terms of function, safety, safe for the operators, but also safe for the environment. So there has to be an independent certifying body. Finally, this is an example taken from another project, a tutorial, which helps you navigate within the website. It will be helpful for the attendees and the trainees in order to find their way inside the platform. Many other activities in the project are 5 training days to be carried out by Agricoltura Vita and Emma. In the coming year, 2 trainers or researchers will participate for each Turkish part. Altogether 6. Then an educational video will be made introducing the topic of agriculture 4.0, and of course there will be ample room for dissemination through the use of social media, the website, newsletters, and so on and so forth, and also events, the organization of events with today's event. The final conference will be in 2021 in Ankara, where we hope that by the end of 2021 we'll be able to travel to Ankara, where the meeting that was supposed to be held in Spain, in Granada, did not take place. Now, before handing over to Massimo Cannavicchio, on behalf of all friends from the working group, working party, I'd like to show you this picture at the beginning of the project. It was early February. We traveled to Turkey. It was one of our last trips, and I do wish that we can start the on-site meetings soon. Thank you very much, Mr. Jelly. You can stop your slide share. And now I'd like to hand over to Massimo Cannavicchio. Thank you, Matteo. Thanks everybody for taking place in this webinar, which is important to us because we are in a key phase of the Implement 4.0 project. We are dealing with bots and with the necessary technologies in a framework where digital data have to be used. It shouldn't sound strange to you. This is not very frequent. The Python data is collected through sensors using private software, or machinery is designed together with technologies for farmers, but farmers find it difficult to adopt these technologies. We're trying to bridge this gap at the moment. Yesterday, I attended an online course, and I realized that there is great interest in this topic. But it is of no surprise that we're very far from the goal of the Ministry of Agriculture, which was 10% investment in precision farming. We still have a lot to do. We believe that the new project that we have presented with Agricoltura Vita and Enama is a special call for the COVID-19 period. This sounds very important for the coming steps. We have to consider ANKIS, Agricultural Knowledge Innovation Systems, to support farmers and focus on the potential for the third millennium linked to the digitization of systems. As you know, a major efforts are being carried out by the Union within the Green Deal and the 2050 goals for the neutralization of emissions into the air to tackle climate change. A series of initiatives have been undertaken on the European digital agenda, which will have 9 billion euros for 5 years. And this shows how important it is to adopt technologies, digital technologies, disseminate them at farm level. I believe alongside what you will hear from the experts, there will also be an opportunity to draw some conclusions and remarks on it. Thank you very much, and I'm eager to listen to the other speakers. Thank you very much, Massimo. We'll now go on with further exploration. We'll talk about the 4.0 agricultural revolution, technological and economic aspects. I'll hand over to Professor Mazzetto now from the Free University of Bolzano. To you, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mazzarelli. My presentation is going to be extremely general. Details having been already described by the two previous speakers. It's an extremely interesting project and will certainly leave a mark for all of us for a number of reasons that I'm about to explain. An interesting topic introduced by Mr. Anselelli is digital agriculture. This term is probably the best suited to explain the current situation. We have a number of terms creating a lot of confusion, like this 4.0 term, which is used all too often to describe many different contexts, like Industry 4.0, which is always taking the lion's part, whereas agriculture is always coming second. I can tell you that up until last year, with other colleagues, agriculture and engineering, IT areas, we kept asking ourselves, what is Industry 4.0 about? It's IoT, the Internet of Things, and big data. This is a typical answer by an IT expert. But what about this 4.0 term? Is it clear to everyone? Let me apologize with you if I'm explaining things in a very academic way, but I think we should set a few clear concepts. Industry 4.0 exists because there were three previous technological revolutions in the industry, steam engines, mass industry, and the third that we missed was the digital revolution, Industry 3.0. That revolution lasted from 1970 to 2010, which is the set date for the coming up of Industry 4.0, so massive digitalization of the whole sector. Well, they benefited a lot from that. In fact, the industry was very much in line with digital technologies already. The transition to 4.0 was possible, cybernetics, hyperconnection, advanced automation, with everything that comes with it. But what happened to agriculture? I've tried really hard and I said, can we really talk about industry or agriculture 4.0? I thought about it a lot. I didn't want to be fashionable, but I focused on the concept. Is there an agriculture 4.0 at all? We started from agriculture zero, which was manual, the rural agriculture, then agriculture 1.0, that was about the- introducing mechanized machinery, mechanization that was well before the industrial sector. And then we had the motorization coming first, where tractors were introduced, and mechanization was about the development of implements and equipment. I think we should then set a date, let's say 1980, when the revolution of humanities and electronics started. We started looking at ergonomics, safety, a more human-centered approach, and electronics certainly helped improving a few number of situations up until, well, that was until 1990 when precision farming was started. Agriculture 4.0, but there was no digital revolution because agriculture 3.0 never experienced any digital revolution. We were never able to introduce IT into agriculture. We're now facing many challenges. Without the IT issue haven't been dealt with by the agricultural system at large. So there's an agriculture yet to be established and consolidated. We're now trying to introduce technologies into the production processes, but there's no IT culture. An IT system which necessarily has to be calibrated on the needs of agriculture, which is totally different from the ERP system, the enterprise resource, the planning systems established starting in the 1980s within the industrial sector. Agriculture has completely different requirements and no closed and controlled spaces to be managed, highly repeatable, all products standardized. We work in biological products, larger spaces where there was a lot of variability. We're exposed to climate variability. We find it hard to plan our activity because, of course, there are so many unpredictable events. We have to deal with complex, chaotic systems versus the more controllable scenarios in the industry. This brings about increasing challenges. So we need to refound an IT culture based on these aspects. Why am I saying this? And then we need to look at the roles of technicians and researchers, and I include myself in the research community. So researchers, the professionals, farmers, technical assistants, and so this there are different roles involved in this new culture. We cannot expect the digital revolution to be left in the hands of IT experts and engineers who have no idea of the application domain of agriculture, which is so chaotic and requires a lot of professionalism. So it is a very heartfelt uh, approach on my part. Massimo said that unfortunately, all things considered, precision farming, and I've been into this since 1994, it's a long time, a whole professional life. And the penetration into the real market, and I'm not just talking about Italy, maybe that was stronger in Italy, but that happened abroad as well, are very limited. So we need to break this vicious circle and bring more professional skills into this. Of course, IT systems could help. Let me give an example. Just assisted driving, which is often or which is made available, like combine harvesters to get organized. Sometimes the people start asking, why don't we get recorded the tracings? Going from visualization to memorization entails a major change in mindset. You need a digital archive. Um, how can that be organized? So we need to work on the IT system with a heavy digitalization as against a lighter digitalization, which is limited to automation. And in my opinion, looking at the future, certain assistance and support centers could be established. And of course, professional associations could play a role which would provide a number of solutions. Farmers are not supposed to become IT experts or engineers. They have to be farmers and be adequately supported in using technologies. Apologize for the so long and passionate. I really feel very passionate about this topic. I congratulate the promoters of this project, which really goes into this direction. This is the way to go. Thank you so much, Professor Mazzetto. Your comments are very much in line with uh, with the exchange that we had with our colleagues and within our association, the Italian farmers and Italian young farmers, and this is a interesting food for thought for a Q&A if we have enough time later. Let me now give the floor to Mr. Frascanelli, but from Turkey we have Professor Benal Ozitekin connected from Turkey. Hello, hello to you from the AIMA Digital Review. I'd like to invite you to join our live session from Turkey. Please come join us next year for the physical aim, of course. You're invited already. Mm, Let me tell Professor Mazzetto that farmers cannot start overnight developing skills in data collection and storage. Transition to digital technology in agriculture requires a very complex transition. Oversimplifications have to be avoided, and that's often the case. They're used because it's easy, it's really important, it's useful, but very complex that cannot be left to chance. We'll now give the floor to Professor Angelo Frascarelli for a speech. He has a presentation. Can you please share your screen? Please switch on your microphone first. Good morning, everyone. Let me share my presentation now. Can you see it? Not yet. Well, no, you can't share your screen. You should be able to share it now. Yes, yes. Okay, there you go. Mr. Mazzetto talked about technology. I'm going to talk about economic aspects and economic assessment of precision farming, as, pros and cons. I prepared a summary. It's a very large table showing the dimension of precision farming. It has an economic, environmental, and human impact, a human and social dimension. From an economic viewpoint, Agriculture 4.0, as defined by Mr. Mazzetti, has a considerable impact. Let's look at the titles in red. It reduces times of operation, reduces overlappings and uncatered areas. We're carrying out experimentations in different farms using precision farming and the ones that are not. But, it's very clear. You can see the difference between the two types of fields. There's a reduction overlapping and uncovered areas. You can use satellites, etc. So reduced operation time, less labor cost, increased labor productivity. But we think that precision farming had a major impact on rice growing. We have water flooded fields for rice growing. And in the past, they used a little kid at the beginning of the field and an elderly man at the end of the field bearing a flag as a reference. So precision farming has reached 100% in rice growing. So less time, increased yields, and use of information. This is extremely important. With precision farming, farming can collect and accumulate information. So it's not bales, but information that's stored on the farm. And this is also important in terms of complying with regulations, showing users and consumers that what kind of techniques were used for crop production. At MacFruit 2019, Co-op asked all their fruit and vegetable suppliers to adopt precision farming within 3 years. What about retail and agriculture 4.0? What's the link? It's about keeping consumers informed about what's going on. Let's now look at the cons. Number one, costs. We have more fixed costs, increase in maintenance costs, higher insurance costs, but they are not unaffordable. Of course, there's an increase in obsolescence because all agriculture 4.0 equipment tend to age much quicker than the mechanical components. Then the environmental dimension, meaning less use of fuel oil, lubricants, the seeds, pesticides, fertilizers. And so in this way, we can reach all the goals pursued by European consumers and citizens, as explained by the Farm to Fork strategy. We need a 50% reduction of chemicals and then fertilizers and so on and so forth. But we're not going to make it by going back to agriculture of the past, our grandfather's agriculture. We're not going to reach the goals if not by adopting agriculture 4.0. We have many effects in terms of fighting climate change and adapting to it. And then the social and human dimension. We shouldn't forget that traditional farmers with no GPS after 10 years of labor, they are so exhausted, so tired. And of course, that entails a reduction in safety. I've met many farmers using agriculture 4.0 reporting that their working conditions have improved considerably. So farmers, while planting, they can keep an eye on the newspaper and check soccer games, and that's not to be forgotten. You can extend working times, you can work with poor visibility during the night on flooded fields, such as rice growing. That's a major disadvantage. You need higher professional skills. These slides are going to be about the economic side of things. You can see the results of an experiment carried out by my department on a farm in Mantua with over 30 hectares were used for the experiment. We so conservative and precision farming, 1 and 2, thesis 1 and 2, or cases 1 and 2 concern precision farming. And you can see both in case 1 and 2, without getting too much into detail, gave better income results compared to the cases with no precision farming. The difference in income is between 250, and in the best situation was up to 550, and intermediate was 430. Now, talking about corn, precision farming brings economic advantages between 130 and 300 euros per hectare. 130 to 300 euros per hectare. Uh, a farmer told me that's not a lot of money. Should we go through this major change of 100 to 300 euros per hectare is still something. We're talking about a crop with a profitability of 250 on average. So it means increasing profitability in a reasonable way. And thanks to this data, things can be improved. I've seen father and son working in the evening after dinner and having fun with the data, coming in and discussing how to better work that field where there's this and that problem, or on another plot of land. So it's fun too. Let me now come to the project talking about the professionalism. The limit is the farmers being very resistant to innovation. So in order to spread agriculture 4.0, we don't need to focus only on techniques and money, but rather on a learning process. You need a cultural shift. Some farmers are convinced that they need machinery only for plowing and major operations, whereas farming machinery should be used to perform the best in all the operations in the best possible way. Let me conclude by congratulating you for the project and adding that today, if there's an investment to be done on Culture Point Zero, is not only about machinery, without taking anything away from what Mr. Mazzetto said. Of course, there's a larger supply of machinery. We should invest on professionalism and human resources. Thank you.
Eventually see some economic figures. This was actually missing in the past when talking about innovations in agriculture. And now the point of view of two authoritative representatives, one from the agricultural world and one from the manufacturer's world. Let me ask a question to both Stefano Francia and Gerardo Caffini. Your opinion, your opinion, is this technology strategic for Italian farming? Let's listen to the point of view of a young farmer and young entrepreneur. Now, Mr. Francia first. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I very much agree with the last slide shown by Professor Frascarelli. What he pointed out is strategic. The use of new technologies necessarily goes through training. If we don't implement training on new technologies introduced by mechanical research and what is produced by the machinery industry, it's difficult to obtain any results. Well, especially young young farms and young farmers can start on the right footing because we can start adopting digital technologies right from the beginning. The support of companies and manufacturers, we as farmers can develop a common training project so that the farmers buying high technology machines can have a competitive edge. Well, this requires a considerable effort. What is done really in the after-sales period by the manufacturers is essential to make people fond of technologies. If you develop a technology and you leave it there to the farmer, it doesn't generate any income. The farmer doesn't get fond of it. But if we support the farmers when adopting this technology, we can increase the base of farmers intending to adopt that digital machinery, and the effect is much stronger than any promotion or advertising. At European level, we have to use less plant protection chemicals, less energy, etc. And all this is in line with what Angelo said before. Certainly, we have to avoid overlapping crop operations. We have to be able to work longer hours if the season allows this. Well, there's a set of advantages that we have to make available to the farmers. But don't forget that we, as an association, also investigated to what extent farmers are ready to invest in technology. Well, this is not a trivial argument. We have to really appreciate how much they are ready to spend, and this is one key factor in relation to digital technology and digital agriculture. Investments in digital agriculture have to be supported in a massive way, also because the technology is renewed on a quick basis, and depreciation of investments must be at shorter term than agricultural equipment. The other thing I'd like to stress is that in developing technologies, we need the support of farmers and manufacturers at the same time. In Italy, we have a high level of mechanization in specialized crops, and this is thanks to farmers and manufacturers. At the same time, manufacturers have improved their machinery with the advice of farmers, and the farmers, in turn, have understood that these machines could make their lives easier. This is a competitive edge that we have. We shouldn't lose this in the future. We are leaders in specialized crops, and this is thanks to the fact that we cooperate and create a very effective system. Thank you very much to President Francia. I'd like to remind all speakers to unmute themselves when they don't speak. And now the floor to Gianluca from the manufacturer's point of view, also in the light of what we've just heard from President Francia. President Francia would like to implement a national law for the dissemination of digital agriculture among the farmers. This is a bit like what happened in the 80s for the improvement of knowledge in agriculture. Over to you, Mr. Gaffini, for your point of view. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me here today. I agree, certainly the development of technologies in country was hindered by policies for this. One important piece is missing. We have to make sure that that technology is really worthwhile inside the fund. Instead, usually the mindset is different. I fit the device so that I get incentive of the whole tractor. Maybe then you only know how to use the device partially. Well, this shouldn't be the right approach. As Mr. Mazzetto and Professor Frascarelli said, devices show benefits from the no, 200 or 300 euros per hectare for a small amount. This the number of hectares and the number of years, and you end up having really figures apart from having a traceability system for your production, which allows you to have better prices in the international market. So information dissemination are important keywords. You need to be able to use these technologies. In Italy, well, if we can't use these technologies in Italy, why in the European countries they know how to use these technologies well? Well, this will end up penalizing the Italian producers because end users from other countries and the retail industry will do the same. You know, in some countries, this is already the case. Also talking about fruit and vegetables in the retail industry, we need to consider these examples. They will be also popular in Italy in the future. I think we should also reflect another point. We enormous technological advantages in terms of adding value to production, but also piece where the putting agriculture in the hands of just a few people that learn everything in advance and impose their prices. Farmers will have to accept this. The project is going on well. We have a wonderful partnership with the two especially President già for we have